All right, folks, it's time to talk Alabama football. Best way to do that is you bring on Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama. You can join him right there with exhaustive coverage on the Tide. And so I will string this out just a few seconds as we get a number of people on the live stream to join the live chat. Of course, we are talking of the SEC opener with Bama going to Mississippi to take on those Rebels in Oxford. Of course, this is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. So please like, comment, and subscribe right here as we bring on the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the nation. We tell you all the time, we have the best discussion, debate, and analysis right here on the landscape of college football. And of course, we can't miss Alabama. And so we bring on Stephen M. Smith. Stephen, how you doing tonight?
Doing well, man. Happy to be back on Mark Rogers TV. It's Tuesday this time.
A little Tuesday night action for us. And we also have a call-in aspect to the show that we've implemented recently. So I've had a few requests, and after we get done with our conversation, I'll have a few people call in and ask me a few questions, and we'll leave you to your to enjoy the rest of your evening. But first, we gotta break down the Tide here, and Nick Saban obviously always specializing in a couple things here in regards to taking pride in the kicking game, taking pride in the secondary. So since the kicking game was of note this past week against Arkansas State because 2 missed point afters in 3 touchdowns to start the game, that doesn't happen very often to anyone. And so that was a little bit of a cause for concern. So there's been some talk about how to remedy the situation.
There has been. Nick Saban still confident in Austin Jones, the graduate transfer from Temple. It's kind of crazy because in his career, he's made 80% of his field goals the last 3 years. He's only missed 2 extra points during his time at Temple the last 3 years, 102 for 104, but comes to Alabama, misses an extra point against Louisville. He doinks 2 extra points off the goalposts, again, which drawed a lot of boos from the crowd, of course. And it's kind of a mental thing with kickers. When you make your first couple of kicks, you feel invincible, you feel like Superman, and then you miss a couple of kicks and it eats at you for long periods of time. So although Nick Saban is still confident in Jones, Joseph Bulovas, the #1 rated kicker coming out of Louisiana in the 2017 class, a 3-star, came out there and did his job, made 5 extra points, even had a 39-yard field goal to push Alabama's lead to 43-7. I watched him come off the field after making that field goal. He flashed a smile, did a little bit of a dance on the sideline to really let his teammates know he's got that groove, he's got that confidence. And the main thing with Joe has always been he has the leg mark. He's just kind of been erratic at times with his timing, his follow-through on kicks. So hopefully this performance against Arkansas State, also he was named one of 8 players of the week for Alabama by the coaching staff. So hopefully this performance boosts up his confidence a bit more and he can take that into the Ole Miss game. But one of us 5 extra points, made a 39-yard field goal. Saban mentioned the competition still there between he and Austin Jones, but I think after the weekend, both of us took that next step forward.
All right, Stephen. So as is being mentioned by our guy William Lee on the live chat, the punting has not been very good either.
Well, Alabama fans greatly miss J.K. Scott. Let's be honest. The young man was a legend, and now he is booming the ball 40, 50 yards in the National Football League with the Green Bay Packers. But I tend to not put my hand on the panic button just yet due to Jeff Banks is your special teams coach, and this is a guy that knows special teams. He punted in college at Washington State University, helped that team in 1997 get to the Rose Bowl, a 10-2 year for the Cougars that season. In every coaching stop he has made, Jeff Banks has excelled on special teams, including at Texas A&M. What he did with Drew Kaiser and Shane Tripucka from a punting aspect was nothing short of remarkable. So I'm not going to have my hand put on the panic button just yet. Skylar DeLong has some things he has to learn, some things he has to improve on, but you got the special teams coach there. You got some time to continue to improve and get that confidence going. I'm not one to really just hit the panic button just yet.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, talking Tide on a Tuesday night with Stephen Smith of Touchdown Alabama. So join them on the actual website, but also here on YouTube as they break down video and get you set for each and every Alabama football game. Of course, the SEC openers coming up this week in Oxford. It was just a few years ago that, of course, Alabama had its struggles against the Ole Miss Rebels, and Mr. Hugh Freeze was on the sideline at the time in losing 2 consecutive games to the Rebels. So I didn't expect, Stephen, when we prepped before we came on, for you to need to address the run game in terms of any kind of concern. What could possibly be wrong with the Alabama running game?
Nothing wrong as far as the talent, Mark, but Nick Saban wants to see more physicality from the offensive line. It's more so the line than the running backs. And more importantly, he wants to see that growth from the right side, where Alex Leatherwood at right guard, Jedrick Wills at right tackle, the 2 sophomores are concerned. On the left side, you know what you're getting with Jonah Williams. He's a 2-year starter at offensive tackle, right tackle as a freshman, left tackle last year. Lester Cotton at left guard, the most physically imposing guy on this group at 6'4", 325 pounds. Now, at times, he has struggled with the mental confidence. He's gotten that down now, a lot better with that now. So the right side of that offensive line, imposing your will with the Wills and Leatherwood, is what Nick Saban wants to see in the run game. He wants to see that balance. And now with conference play coming in, it's the balanced teams that win the conference. I don't care if it's the ACC, the Big Ten, Pac-12. It's the balanced teams that win in these conferences. And for Nick Saban, wants to see that running game really take that next step, but it starts with the right side of that offensive line.
Got Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama on the line to talk Tide. Ole Miss is the opponent for week number 1 in the SEC. Of course, the Tide is 2-0 after disposing quite handily of Louisville and Arkansas State. Stephen, we've got a comment on the line concerning Tyrell Shavers. Of course, a highly touted wide receiver, 12th rated out of 247 sports rankings out of Texas, committed early and signed by the Tide. And 2KJ on our live chat wants to know whether we can expect Mr. Shavers to see some playing time.
Alabama is working on a package for him. I don't know if it's a more so of a goal line package or what the case is Saban has up his sleeve, but there's definitely a package in the works for Tyrell Shavers. This young man is 6'6", 216 pounds, freakish athleticism, huge body, strong hands, has drawn a lot of the comparisons to Cam Sims, who carried that exact same height prior to him going to the National Football League. There is a package in play for Tyrell Shavers. It comes down to, when does Nick Saban pull that package? When do they go to it? Because in that package, he is the X receiver. He's on the top of the formation at X in that package. So it just comes down to, when do they pull it? Right now in the rotation, he is second behind Devontae Smith, who ironically is the number 1 X wide receiver in Alabama's rotation. So it all comes down to, when does Nick Saban pull in the package that has Tyrell Shavers in it? But he is involved.
And with this Smith kid, I don't know what it is, but I got a feeling that maybe sometime in his career, he's going to catch a meaningful pass. I think maybe at some point, Stephen, that Devontae Smith kid is maybe going to catch a deciding pass that might prove key in some meaningful game at some point.
I mean, he's already done it twice in a row, Mark.
Oh, okay.
So
all right.
The trifecta is not going to surprise me. I mean, Devontae Smith, and I remember the fall camp. It was the open practice in 2017, and I'm there for Touchdown Alabama. It is sweltering hot outside. I think it's about 95 degrees with a heat index of 104, and I'm out here with a suit and tie on, trying to look professional, sweating bullets. And I chatted up with my main man, Cam Sims. I'm asking Cam Sims, if there was a moment in a game where Calvin Ridley's covered, Calvin Ridley falls down, or Calvin Ridley is not on the field, who do you go to in a pressure moment? And I just remember Robert Foster walks by, Cam says nothing. Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy both walk by, Cam says nothing. Another receiver casually walks by, daps up Cam Sims, Cam says nothing. So I'm wondering what in the world's going on. So Cam takes me by my right hand. He walks me over to the opposite side of the field, and he points to a 6-foot, 170-pound receiver soaking wet and goes, "That's the guy right there, Devontae Smith." And I look at Cam as if he's half crazy. He says, "Steven, you may not believe me, but that guy has the most secure hands on this team." Lo and behold, Cam Sims from Louisiana was not pulling my chain. Devontae Smith has it.
Absolutely not. He nailed the selection right there, because he would find his way into Alabama lore within a few years. Very nice. Alabama 2-0, of course, taking on Ole Miss, and the Rebels are at 2-0 as well. And before we move on to some Ole Miss prep, Nick Saban's pride and joy, to a certain extent, is the secondary. Possibly some changes there as they face one of the top passing attacks in the SEC.
Was at practice today, and kind of a shakeup here in the secondary. I'm not sure if they're going to keep this look. I doubt they keep this look, but it's a very interesting one. Alabama went into its nickel package during the second of two viewing periods. The linebackers of Zach Wilson, Dylan Moses. One of the corners on the right side was Savion Smith. The left corner, who is typically Trayvon Diggs, was actually Patrick Surtain Jr., the freshman, who lined up at left corner at 6'2", 202 pounds from Plantation, Florida, American Heritage High School, the 5-star there. The safeties were both the same, Deontay Thompson and Xavier McKinney, but the guy lining up as the nickelback was Trayvon Diggs, who's 6'2". So Nick Saban trying to get, I guess, more of his physical guys on the field. Ole Miss's receiving core averages between 6'3" and taller. A.J. Brown is 6'2". I believe DK Metcalf is 6'5". DeMarcus Lodge, if he is still on the roster, is 6'2". And then you got Dawson Knox at tight end, who's a pretty good-sized guy in his own right. And then there's Brandon Sanders, who's about 6 feet, 6'1". So these are some pretty physical receivers that Ole Miss has. The Rebels keep a good crop of physical guys that can go up, body out, box out, and catch the football. So in Nick Saban's case, he's trying to keep his more taller, physical guys on the field. Will this look stay this way? Probably not. You may see the regular look of Savion Smith, Trayvon Diggs at corner, Shaheem Carter at star, and the safeties Deontay Thompson and Xavier McKinney. But it's a very interesting look seeing Saban go 6'2" corner and freshman Patrick Surtain, who's got a lot of talent, and then 6'2" defensive back Trayvon Diggs at star. Kind of a mix-up from Saban at today's practice.
All right, folks, I need your help. Here's the deal. This is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. You guys are solid in your support. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and, of course, share the videos as well. So, for example, with this video right here, if you know some Alabama football fans or just people that want some good, rock-solid prep on the Ole Miss game, share the video. So we appreciate it. Join Stephen M. Smith as well on Twitter. Coaching S. Smith, is that the handle?
Coaching M. Smith.
Coaching M. Smith. Coaching M. Smith. That is the handle on Twitter from my buddy Stephen. And, of course, the crew at Touchdown Alabama. It is, you can find it right there on the website, touchdownalabama.com, and then also go to Touchdown Alabama on YouTube, where they produce videos right there. So we bring you the best discussion, debate, and analysis of college football. If you want nothing but Tide, join us, Stephen, as well. All right, those Ole Miss Rebels, they are scoring points like nobody's business. They were a slim underdog week 1 in Houston against Texas Tech, won by 20. Important win for them to go out of conference, take on a decent foe in Texas Tech. And then last week, I think they're still shooting layups or shooting threes in this one. Southern Illinois Eastern Illinois, one of those schools. 76-41 final score. So, it was a few years ago that I know in back-to-back games, maybe 3 consecutive games, that Ole Miss and Alabama put up points like you rarely see among good teams in SEC play. And that was with just tremendous NFL-laden Ole Miss and Alabama defenses. So I don't know what we're in store for this weekend, Stephen.
We're in store for which defense can stop which quarterback, because we got 2 guys right here that are potential Heisman candidates, Heisman front runners. Both of these guys will be playing football on Sundays really soon. And Tua Tagovailoa for Alabama and Jordan Ta'amu for Ole Miss. And just speaking on Ta'amu for Ole Miss, this guy right now, 7 touchdowns, no interceptions, is throwing guys open, is spraying the ball down the field, not afraid to thread the ball in tight windows. You got to give Matt Luke, head coach, and Phil Longo, offensive coordinator, a ton of credit for grooming this man, for cultivating this young man, especially after Shea Patterson got hurt, went down, and then now off to Michigan. You have a guy in Ta'amu that a lot of people feel like slightly better than Shea Patterson with his ability to run the football as well as be deadly throwing it. So the matchup within the matchup, Mark, is, for goodness sake, which defense can slow down, limit the quarterback play?
So, yeah, Ole Miss, Jordan Ta'amu, as you mentioned, relieved Shea Patterson when Patterson went down last season, and the offense did not miss a beat, although Shea Patterson generally played the better defenses. But Ta'amu is certainly the deal. I was attempting to look up the Ole Miss running game at a point in which, of course, they lost Jordan Wilkins from last year. They've got the kid Sweeney and some other options there at running back. I don't know how much you've gotten a chance to see Ole Miss play. I did see some of the Texas Tech game in regards to their running game and some of the weapons, obviously, they have on the outside. A.J. Brown might be the best wide receiver in the land. DeMarcus Lodge, a very good one as well. DK Metcalf, they're loaded. They're fun to watch. They may not win a ton of games in conference play this year, 2 or 3 probably, but they are going to be a whole lot of fun to watch.
They are. And in the run game, I think Sweeney's going to have to step up. But I look at Ole Miss. This is going to be running back by committee, and then who really has the hot hand. That's what I see it. I mean, Jordan Wilkins was a tough, hard-nosed back throughout his career, possessed some speed once he hit the open field. But I think this year's group is going to be running back by committee. It'll start off with Sweeney. They'll mix and match some guys in, but whoever can burst out, have that hot hand where, Mark, they're giving you 4 yards to carry here, getting you in second and third and manageable. That's the main thing. Whichever back for Ole Miss can win first down against Alabama to where you're picking up 3, 4, 5 yards, getting you in second and 6, second and 5, third and 3, really making it comfortable on Jordan Ta'amu. That will be your back that ultimately carries this thing.
Yeah, so we've in looking at the rushing stats through 2 games, and of course the last game, a complete mismatch in which the Rebels put up a 76. So Jordan Ta'amu right now is completing just under 70% of his passes, 7 touchdowns, has yet to be intercepted, facing a different animal this week in Oxford. But Scotty Phillips has carried 31 times for 311 yards. That is 10 yards per pop for 4 touchdowns, and Isaiah Woolard, a guy that we previewed in our prediction video for Ole Miss football, has chipped in as well. And yeah, Scotty Phillips, a junior. And so he hit up Texas Tech for a big game on 16 carries for 204 and 2 touchdowns. And then Southern Illinois to the tune of 15 carries for 107 and 2 more scores. If he keeps up a 10-yard average against Alabama, then that will be news. All right, Ole Miss, Alabama.
I mean, get 10. If he keeps a 5-yard average against Alabama,
yeah.
that's a front-page lead.
No question about that. So Again, this has been a game that's been a fun one in recent years when Ole Miss had those players under Hugh Freeze. And of course, then we later found out why they might have had those players that moved on to the NFL draft rather quickly. The likes of Laramie Tunzel and Laquan Treadwell and so forth that highlighted that Ole Miss run in which they took down Alabama twice, won a Sugar Bowl, and finished in the top 10 or 12 in the country 2 or 3 consecutive seasons. So those Land Shark teams finished, according to the advanced metrics, Stephen, top 3 in the country in total defense and in all the meaningful metrics. And this is how much the defense has taken a hit because of the recruiting violations, because of everything that went on, and the slump that has followed the Hugh Freeze disaster. That the defense was ranked right around 115 in the nation last year. So from number 3 in 2014 to a 3-year journey to number 15 in the rankings in total defense. Yeah, Ole Miss is needing to ride the arm of Jordan Ta'amu, those fleet receivers, and hope that the defense can just get the offense behind the chains, maybe come up with a pass deflection, a turnover, something positive, and make them maybe stretch the length of the field to try to score, to try to stay in football games once they face the SEC Western Division. And that starts, of course, with Alabama, Stephen.
I think it starts off for Ole Miss with linebacker Dietrich Ben Dukes. I mean, he's the captain of this front. He's got to be able to patrol the traffic, get some pressure on Tua Tagovailoa if you can, affect the run game if you can, but at the same time, not just Ben Dukes, but also Ken Webster in the secondary. This is a big year for him. Here is somebody who was highly touted coming in, had that awful, just gruesome compound injury against Florida State a couple of years back, and he's finally healthy. He's finally at 100%. So to see Ken Webster back out there, him making tackles and sparing overs, forcing a couple of deflections. For Ole Miss, if they can keep this close, if they can keep this a close football game, it's tricky when you go to Oxford. I mean, I remember 2014 like yesterday. Everybody said there's no way Bo Wallace, who could not keep his hair out of his face, could win this football game. And gosh, found a way, kept the game close, and at the end, the goalpost came down as the Rebels took that one 23-17. So if you're Ole Miss, you find some way possible to keep this game close going to the second half.
And then, of course, there was the turnover fest first quarter that put the Tide in a hole in Tuscaloosa the next year, and they lost that game. Then they came back and played Chad Kelly and company and finally broke the 2-game losing streak. But that was a free-for-all. That was an exciting game in which Chad Kelly put up a ton of yardage, and Ole Miss actually came back from about 20 down to cut it to about 5 points, had the ball at midfield and fumbled with about 90 seconds left in the game, or otherwise, who knows, Chad Kelly would have been slinging the ball in the end zone with a chance to pull off another upset.
Chad Kelly was something, boy. Chad Kelly and Bo Wallace were both something the last 2 times I went down to Oxford. So it is a tricky environment to play in. It's humid down. It's humid in Mississippi. Food is great, but it's humid. Field is kind of small, but fan base, they will eat at you when you are the opposition.
Alabama-Ole Miss coming up this week. Of course, the Tide is number 1 in the nation and has been since the preseason. No reason to knock them off their perch after huge wins over Louisville and Arkansas State. I had noted this earlier in the week, Stephen, that Alabama passed Ohio State for a number of weeks at number 1 since the AP poll was first released way back in 1936. So this is 105 weeks for Ohio State, and now Alabama has been ranked number 1 for the 106th time. Does it mean anything? No, it generally means that these programs have been dominant throughout the ages of college football. To be voted number 1 over and over and over and over for this particular season, does it mean anything? No, they have to continue to win games. And of course, Alabama is going to keep that ranking as long as they continue to win games. But just an interesting historical note this week.
It just blows your mind just to see the type of consistency that Nick Saban has brought to this program since coming in 2007. And I know there are a lot of Tide fans out there that jumped on the minute Nick Saban got to Tuscaloosa, but a lot of the fans that were wearing that crimson and white when you had to go through DeBose and Mike Price and Joe Kynes and Mike Shula and Dennis Franchione, and were moments where you couldn't buy in. You had 3-8 seasons, 6-6 seasons. You lost to Auburn 7 times in Iron Bowl matchups, and you were praying on Bibles for wins and couldn't get them. So for those fans that have seen, what Saban has done, especially after going through those rough years, those rough moments, and you're seeing a very consistent program and a program that you can be happy about, speaks volumes on a man that has come in and has really done a great job giving the fans exactly that, a program that it can be proud of.
There it is, Alabama football talk with Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama. Please join him right there for Alabama football talk each and every day of the year. Never stops. Alabama sports coverage across the board as well, as, of course, we get into another sports season here in the fall. And you can join Stephen and the crew right there. Of course, this is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. I'm going to let Stephen ride off into the sunset. Stephen, we appreciate you stopping by to set us up for the Tides SEC opener. And I will stick around to highlight this week's schedule on Mark Rogers TV and open up the phone lines as well. Stephen, you have a great night, sir. All right, so the phone lines are 860-325-3687. I've had a few requests for call-ins tonight, so I will take them. Bash Gaming, where are you? You in particular. 860-325-3687. In the meantime, I will remind everyone that we've got a loaded schedule this week on Mark Rogers TV. So last night we talked Utah as the Utes prep for Washington. We also talked LSU as the Tigers prep for the other Tigers in the SEC. That would be the Auburn Tigers. And let's take a call.
The call will start at the beep.
Here we go. Hey, it's Mark Rogers TV.
Hey.
Who's on the line?
Hey, it's Bash.
All right. Bash. You got a bone to
How you
pick with
doing
me.
tonight?
I'm doing just fine. How are you? What
Well,
did I do
you said
wrong?
You heard no one. You said you heard no one who said Arizona State would beat Michigan State.
Well, you understand when I make a comment like that, I generally mean the entire nation,
Yeah,
not that nobody
I'm just messing
anywhere,
with you. I'm just messing
nobody
with you.
anywhere. So you're telling me that you made that prediction?
Yeah.
Well,
I
well,
made that prediction in the preseason. I think Michigan State looks worse though than they look worse than I thought. I thought it was just going to be a sleepy game, 10:45 p.m. Eastern kick kind of thing. I thought that would be one of only 2 losses for Michigan State. Now I'm kind of leaning for 3 or 4 losses for them.
This guy right here in this seat said 4. I went 4, 8-4 for Michigan State. So we had a conversation last week, and if you recall, you threw out 4 games to me. I think it was Pitt, Penn State, it was Clemson, Texas A&M.
It was 3.
Was it 3 games?
I was way off with
Well, that's fine.
Pitt, Penn State, and the Georgia, South Carolina. But you know what? Week 2.
No, it's 4 games.
I knew about these teams.
I think it was 4 games, and the only reason I say that,
was
Bash Gaming, the only reason I say that is because specifically I was going over that. I rarely watch these in replay, but I was going over that for a reason in particular to find some comments. And I specifically said, when you asked me what is the most likely upset, I said Arizona State, Michigan State. That was my pick. I didn't pick Michigan State to lose. I picked Arizona State to cover and thought that was the most likely of the 3 or 4 games to be an upset.
Hey, I got you right there. All right.
But I missed a whole lot of games on Saturday, so I've got little to talk about this week.
I did think Clemson was going to blow out Texas A&M. The reason I thought that is because I knew Clemson's secondary wasn't nearly as strong as their front seven.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't think Kellen Mond would throw for 400 yards. That was kind of surprising.
Well, based on what we've seen out of him in the past, he didn't look like he was capable of doing that against hardly anyone. He
that's what my thought process was.
This is either a breakthrough game for him, Bash Gaming. It's either a breakthrough game for Kellen Mond, or he played out of his mind one week and he's going to go back to it being a 50% passer.
Or possibly exposing Clemson. I mean, Clemson may not have too many tremendously tough teams on their schedule, but they still have to go up against Eric Dungy, DeAndre Francois, at least if his offensive line can protect him. And he's also got Ryan Finley on his schedule. Like, he doesn't have, or Clemson doesn't have necessarily the easiest path, even though they are playing a bunch of mid-level teams. I'd rather a team play a bunch of mid-level teams than play like Alabama right now, a couple teams at the top, and then you got a bunch of teams at the bottom. Like, I don't want to see, my rule of thumb with strength of schedule is really, if you really want a tough strength of schedule, either schedule 10 Power 5 opponents, or if you're going to schedule a group of 5, do someone like Boise State. Someone like that, a perennial power in the group of 5. I'm going to get one last thing off here.
Sure.
So my upset pick of this week is going to be Utah beating Washington in Rice-Eccles Stadium. I think that really is like the only big upset I got. That one's a 10 p.m. kickoff, but that, they're both Pacific teams, so that really doesn't matter. But a late game for us on the Eastern time zone. I'll certainly watch it, though. And I think Washington's not going to do bad this season, but I think this knocks them out for the playoff for sure. If they lose, they're definitely out. I don't think there's any arguing that.
So, Bash, you know that I'm right there with you, because my preseason prediction was for Utah to win the Pac-12 South and get to the championship game. So this would help me considerably.
I had Utah winning the South as well. I'm kind of thinking Arizona State a little bit, and I've thought that for a while now, kind of debated in my head, Arizona State or Utah. I've never bought USC. So, I mean, they do have somewhat of a favorable schedule. They do have to go to Palo Alto in a couple weeks, so that's going to be a tough game.
And to your point, Bash Gaming, about Clemson's schedule, we, of course, keep in mind who Clemson has lost to the last 2 years. They didn't lose to the heavyweights on the schedule. They lost to Syracuse on the road. They lost to Pitt at home, and people forget that they were very fortunate. They didn't necessarily make a play. North Carolina State missed a chip shot, 32-yard field goal. Otherwise, Clemson doesn't make the playoff and never wins a national championship.
Yeah, people are easy to forget that. And that's another thing with Alabama, too, is even though they haven't lost to teams that are not in the top 25, they still lost to top 25 opponents that aren't necessarily at the highest up pass. So I'm tired of people locking Alabama and Clemson as undefeated conference champions. They're going to be in the playoff. You can pick them for the playoff, but nothing's a lock. Nothing's a guarantee. This is a long season. Let's see how it all plays out. I'm a big Buckeye fan. I don't know if you even knew that. I just talk college football in general.
I'm a
big Buckeye fan. Doesn't mean Ohio State's going to make it. They're locked because they've been playing out of their mind the last couple of weeks. A lot can change. I watched Ohio State be beaten down by Iowa by 31 points. It's a long season, Mark.
It is a long season, Bash Gaming. Appreciate you stopping by, sir.
Yep. Have a nice night.
You too. It's our guy, Bash Gaming, talking up some college football coast to coast. So here's a logical fan that takes it all in and goes out on a limb at times to make predictions. That's fun. Doesn't call the chalk all the time, and despite being an Ohio State fan, is well aware of what's going on elsewhere in the country. So I'll stick around for a few more minutes at 860-325-3687. I also want to highlight, as I was starting to there, see, if we had a professional outfit here with a switchboard, what would happen is you guys would call in, and we'd be able to put you on hold while I finish my point, but I'm in the middle of making a point and need to take the call. But we'll get there in due time. All right. So what we've got this week is, again, we had Utah Prep yesterday and LSU as well. So check out those videos. Great conversations with SB Nation on LSU and also with Rivals on Utah's prep for Washington. All right, tonight, of course, Jordan K., Arizona State, and then also we just finished up with Stephen Smith of Touchdown Alabama as the Tide takes on Ole Miss in the SEC opener. Okay, listen to this lineup tomorrow night. I'm going to have to get up from time to time to probably stretch the legs, and I will take this call first. But tomorrow night, I've got 6 live streams.
The call will start at the beat.
It's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark Rogers, how you doing, man? This is Prince, 6'1".
There he is. Hey, Prince, what's going on, man?
Oh, nothing much, man. Just man, I'm still scratching my head over this A&M game. I can't figure it out.
From what standpoint?
Just I mean, it's just a hard game. I don't know if Texas A&M is that much better than people think, or we just pulled another Syracuse game. You know what I mean?
Okay. Well, fortunately, you didn't lose the game,
Right.
so you're still unscathed.
Even when they play bad, so I agree with that.
You're still unscathed, and you can probably lose one and get to the playoffs unless you lose to the wrong team, and that's very unlikely in that division to happen because Louisville and NC State and Florida State and Wake, they're all going to beat up on each other, Boston College included. The thing that I will mention is I think we get too locked into pinpointing how good a team is for the entire season based on one game. That Texas A&M team, they most likely played their A game. They're not going to play an A game every week against everybody. They're going to play some C's and some D's and some B pluses, and they're gonna not be that team every week. So you got A&M's best shot. So keep that in mind.
Right, and I watch a lot of pro analysis guys who do more of like the X's and O's and two, and a lot of times what they say is if you watch Texas A&M's first game, I kind of scout them beforehand, and there's no defense that can stop a perfect read and a perfect pass, and that's what they had a lot of time. Even though they played to nobody their first game, he just had this perfect read with that tight end, man. That tight end is so nasty for them. I forget the guy he's a big old guy, like 6'6", and can jump, man. But,
yeah, I saw every play of the game, and I'm not thinking of him either.
Passes. He's got the tattoos on one arm.
Yeah,
I can't remember his name, but
and you see me on here all the time, so you know that I hate not to know who somebody is. So let's see here.
Right,
Texas A&M receiving that night. Of course, they had the kid. Of course, they had the kid Kendrick Rogers, who went out of his mind, 7 catches for $120 and 2 touchdowns. Then you got Cameron Buckley, 4 for 93. Jamon Osborne, probably the most heralded of the wide receivers, caught 3 for 61. You're talking about the Sternberger guy, Jay Sternberger. Yeah, he had a couple big catches.
The thing about him is when he's even covered, we had guys. It's kind of like a Gronk. What you do, you want to have a linebacker underneath him, and you want to have a safety over the top. So you kind of sandwich him in like that, and he was not open, and he would still catch the ball like Gronk does. He's just that big target.
Yeah, it was only week 1 in the NFL, and we already saw Gronk come down with a couple of those kind of plays.
Oh yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. All right, Prince. Anything else on your mind?
If Mon keeps that up, though, man, he could be I saw he's like number 8 on the Heisman watch right now. So I mean, I've never seen Coach Brent Venables ever praise an opposing quarterback that we played. I mean, that's the best quarterback performance we've had against us in probably 4 or 5 years easily.
And the
so
two
usually you face that Bama running back that tears us down, because we've always struggled to stop the run, but now it's our secondary that's the problem.
Yeah, and so the two sets of wide receivers that have impressed me through the first 2 weeks, and even though Washington didn't score a lot of points against Auburn, their wide receivers for players that had not played much last season. We're talking about guys that had 5 or 10 catches last season. They were making some ridiculous catches against Auburn. That was week 1. Then last week it was these A&M guys that we're talking about right here. Those are the two most impressive wide receiver cores that I've seen thus far this year.
Oh, I agree 100%. I mean, they made, like, I just went back and watched the condensed game, and they made crazy catches. Like, the coverage was fine. They just made a hell of a play.
Yep. Yes, they did.
So, yeah, I want to get to it, man. I'm looking forward to this Auburn LSU game this weekend.
Absolutely. There's always too many games for me to see. I can't catch up with all of them, but I watch as much as I can. And that's one of them,
I hear you.
for sure.
I appreciate everything you do for college football, Mark, and have a good night, sir.
Thanks, Prince. I appreciate you jumping on the phone line here so I can hear your voice. I appreciate the comments consistently and the support, sir.
Yeah, buddy. You have a good one.
You too. That was Prince, 6'1", who has flooded our chats and our videos with a ton of good comments, and he gave us a call tonight, so that was nice to see. All right, I wanted to highlight, in addition to taking any more of your calls at 860-325-3687, 860-325-3687, that we did, again, talk Arizona State and Alabama tonight. Check out those videos, this being one of them, of course. And last night was LSU prep for Auburn, Utah prep for Washington. 2 really good discussions there. All right, tomorrow night, again, I may have to stretch my legs from time to time, so if I get up and walk around, starting at 6:30 tomorrow night, and I will get to the schedule in just a second, but it's good to get some phone calls in as well. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who do we have on the line? DeAndre. How you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing great.
It's good to hear from you. What's on your mind?
Well, I want to talk about the Clemson game.
Okay.
I knew the heat was going to be an issue, and I knew our secondary was weak. But I think what a lot of people are missing the point of, Dabo Sweet is a great coach, but sometimes I think he makes the wrong decision. I think they had a chance to kick a field goal, and make it like 31-10, I believe. But I think he went for it and they got stopped. And you go back to that Pitt game a few years ago, he did the exact same thing. He went for it and instead of kicking it.
Okay, so you're talking about at the end of the first half, right?
Right.
Okay, so they went in at half up 14-3, if I remember. They could never go up 28-10. They were up 14-3, and then it was 21-3, and then 21-6. No, it was 14-3. A&M scored out of the gate in the second half to make it 14-6. It was 21-6, 21-13. It kind of kept in that order, but I think that would have stretched the lead to a 17-3. But I would have kicked as well.
Yeah, because you go back and look at that Pitt game, even last year against Syracuse, which I picked Clemson to lose. It's like sometimes I think he outsmarts himself, and he would have played maybe Zach. I think he was the guy that transferred. I can't remember his name. Or Johnson. Maybe they would have won that game. Sometimes I just think he outsmarts himself. He's a great coach, but I think he outsmarts himself. But I knew the Heat was going to get to him. We had talked about it before. I think Clemson's going to be fine because we don't play another great quarterback outside a guy from NC State and a guy at Syracuse. But I'm shocked that Florida State's not doing better than they are. I thought Florida State would give Clemson a hard time, but it doesn't look like it right now.
So this is kind of telling us that they may have some real problems. Yes, they've got a talented roster, but for them to come out on opening night and do what they did, okay, it's alarming. But then you would think, okay, gut check against Samford, you lay down the foot on the throttle and you crush them. And man, they got pushed at the fourth quarter to the hilt down 23-14 in the second half to Samford. So now this really is going to tell us something to whether they can flip a switch, because I think we assume that teams can flip switches, and there's very few that can. They do exist, but I don't know that Florida State's that team. I think they would have already done it. They would have done it at halftime against Virginia Tech when they got punched in the mouth against a good team, but Virginia Tech's not going to be a great team this year. They're going to lose their 2 or 3 games. So for them to get smashed by Virginia Tech and then not follow it up by getting back on track against Samford, I will be interested to see and want to see a lot of the Syracuse game because that's at Syracuse, and that could be tricky.
What you think about Duke?
Well, so I saw Duke play most of the Northwestern game. And I knew that I was right there with you on Duke. I talked about that in my preseason prediction that Duke was going to be much improved. They've recruited top 35 to 40 classes the last couple of years. Unfortunately, now they lost their best corner in Mark Gilbert. Fortunately, their defense is very strong. Man, they went out a second consecutive year against a good Northwestern team. Not a great team again, but a very good team. And they go out on the road and they just, 7 points given up. Defensively, they're very strong. It's going to be fascinating to see them go up against Virginia Tech in 3 weeks at home.
Right.
That might be, we've all ushered. Think about the conversations, DeAndre, on my channel and elsewhere. That's been all the ACC basically is cut and dry, and we haven't even talked about the actual schedule because we've talked about, is Clemson going to still be dominant, or can Miami take them out in the championship game? That's all that's been talked about on these live chats, and we've completely dismissed the Coastal Division. And now we've got a Virginia Tech team that lays waste to Florida State. And we see Miami and how lousy they looked in week 1. And now we've got Duke goes on the road and wins by 2 touchdowns at Northwestern. This conference race might actually be something that we didn't expect it to be.
And I know they probably ain't going to do it, but Virginia's got a certain quarterback. I haven't seen Virginia play outside of highlights, but their quarterback is really nice. So, somebody like that could probably win you 1 or 2 games. So you got to watch out for Virginia, too.
Yeah.
Perkins, have you seen his highlights?
Sure. Yep. So I watched some of the game against Indiana, even though there were better games on. I flipped that on the Big Ten Network in between breaks and so forth. So they had to face a driving rainstorm at Indiana. They couldn't stop Indiana's running game. They ran it down their throats, but other than that, they basically fumbled a punt that set up an Indiana touchdown that otherwise they probably would have won the game. They only lost 20-16. They drove it down to the Indiana 20 with a few seconds on the clock, and had a chance, threw it into the end zone a few times to win the game. Couldn't get it done. But, Indiana's no slouch, and you go on the road and almost win that game. So Virginia might be able to scare a few people this year. It's possible.
Last question. Who has the better division, SEC West or Big Ten East?
Okay. I've answered this one a few times during the offseason. This is my thought. And if anything, my opinion is strengthened toward the SEC a little bit more based on what I've seen the first 2 weeks. But even in the offseason before they played, 1 through 7, the SEC Western Division is the best division in college football. Now, 1 through 4, if you're going to take the top half, I will still favor Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State over what would be Alabama, LSU, Auburn, Mississippi State. But man, now you've got Texas A&M possibly vying for that 3rd or 4th position, or maybe better than that. So the SEC West now looks like it's really strong, 5 deep, and maybe just 4 deep for the Big Ten. So I'm going to say top to bottom, it's the SEC West. I have no issue making that stance, but I still think that top 4 probably leans in the Big Ten's favor.
I don't know how good Ole Miss is, and I was looking at the over/under for Michigan for Ole Miss and Alabama in '71. I'm like, I don't know if I want to put my money up on that one yet. And I was like, wow. But thank you, Mark. I always enjoyed the show, man. I look at it every time I get a chance when I'm not working. You have a great night, sir.
Thank you, DeAndre. I appreciate it. You take care. You too. DeAndre, big Clemson fan, faithful supporter right here. Appreciate him jumping on the line to talk college football. 860-325-3687. I'll stick around for a few more minutes. I just wanted to outline tomorrow night. We're going nuts. 6:30, Parker Gabriel, Husker Extra to talk Nebraska. 7 o'clock, Matt Kovacs. He's with some betting odds deal. I don't know what this is. It's called My Bookie. We're going to bring him on. We're going to talk about betting lines for week 3. Who knows what that's all about. 7:30, James Coleman from Florida State. Gridiron Now, talk up the Knowles. 8:30, Steve Hellwagon, Bucknuts, 247 Sports to talk Ohio State, TCU. Then at 9:30, Steve Helwick from the campus station there at the University of Texas with the Longhorns hosting USC. We'll talk Texas football at 9:30 Eastern. And then I just wrapped up a conversation with Scott Wolf from Inside USC to talk Trojans, their side of the prep with Texas at 10 o'clock. So again, 6:30 Nebraska, 7 o'clock we talk betting, 7:30 Florida State, 8:30 Ohio State, 9:30 Texas, 10 o'clock Eastern time. It's USC Talk Wednesday night right here at Mark Rogers TV. I don't know where else you get college football discussion, debate, and analysis like that. Appreciate the support. I'm going to check out the live chat one more time and then call it a night. It is 11:30 Eastern time, and the day starts bright and early tomorrow. And there are still many, many things to do to build the platform here, even tonight. So let's try to find the live chat once again and see if you guys have anything interesting for me. I love the phone calls, though. I'm glad that we finally got that squared away with the live phone calls. Mark, I think you might have talked yourself into taking the SEC West. I certainly did. I didn't have to talk into it. The SEC West is the best division. There is no Rutgers in the SEC Western Division. There is no, we'll see with Maryland and Indiana, but certainly Rutgers is awful. Ohio State would not march into the SEC Western Division and take on even Arkansas, but certainly Ole Miss and beat them 52-3. And they could have beaten Rutgers 90-0 if they wanted to. All right, guys, we appreciate you joining the live stream tonight. Again, from 6:30 to about 10:30 tomorrow night Eastern time, Texas, USC, Florida State, Ohio State, Nebraska. We've got it all covered for week 3 in college football. Please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us out tremendously. And share the videos if you'd like as well. That would be tremendous. Facebook, we're there. We're at Twitter. Just search Mark Rogers TV. Also, the audio at Google Play, Podbean, iTunes, and Stitcher. The newsletter. If you want to jump on the newsletter for week 3, send your email address to markrogerstv@gmail. markrogerstv@gmail. And you get the newsletter as well. We will see you guys soon. It's 6:30 Wednesday night, 6:30 Eastern time, Nebraska football to kick off the night, to take us all the way through Wednesday night. We will see you guys then.